We are live, Devon Allen, Henry Wynne.
Back at it for another great world's greatest live stream show centered around the Olympic Games. The last one we did was 2 years ago during the Winter Olympics. That went pretty well. So we're getting this back up and running again, talking things, all things Olympic sports with the Olympic opening ceremony happening today. We're with the co-host for the day, Henry Wynne and Bob Siosik, and just checking in with you guys. How you guys doing?
Hey, I mean, let's just everyone knows you guys. Nobody knows me. So
yeah, give a little out. Yeah,
I'm founder of World's Greatest and wearer of many hats. So it's game time when I have my hat on. I only wear the hat 2 times. I wear it. Well, that's a lie, but I wear it
on job.
Yeah, on our shoots, right?
Yep.
And I wear it on the live stream. Got to be repping.
Let's go. I got a haircut for it, so I don't want to cover it up for with a hat. But if anybody doesn't know who I'm, Henry Wynne, 1,500 meter runner in the U.S. Very excited to be here with you guys. We're going to jump into it, but a lot of exciting stuff coming up in the next few weeks to talk about, especially in track and field, where Devon and I obviously have competed, and then some other sports that we're excited to talk about.
Hey, Dev, I got to find that rare footage of when we were out in Phoenix where you were swimming, and you looked like you had a decent stroke going out there.
To be honest, that when you were out there, that was like the first few times I did that workout. As that like progression happened, I became pretty good. I got to like I think like 13 or 14 seconds for a 25 meter swim. It was just, starting in the water,
Okay. Much harder than it seems, though. I'm sure the first time you jumped in the pool, you're like, oh, how bad can this be?
Oh yeah, my legs were burning badly.
Wait till you guys see David Curtis. So in the Science of Movement series, which is on our YouTube channel, our sponsor. Yep, right there. If you guys are on FanFest, you can click into that. Right?
If you think about what is the toughest opponent in swimming,
the guy that we featured,
it's probably the water.
The water is not an entity that wants to allow you to swim through it peacefully. You have to fight it. The water's been sitting there waiting for you to come and telling you.
The 50-meter swimming event is cool because it is a sprint. It's an all-out sprint.
I call it the perfectionist race. 18 cycles of perfected replication.
This is 20 or 21 seconds.
One singular lap in a 50-meter pool, and that is it.
Very unique demands and very unique athletes that perform in this event.
We swim, we ride until we die.
This is the Science of Swimming with David Curtis.
1500 being my favorite event other than 110 hurdles is like how fast you guys are running for 3 and 3/4 of a lap, right? And especially that last lap, you got guys coming through what is a fast time now? 24 seconds for the last 200, 25 seconds for the last 200 after having running almost a mile. Like that's insane.
Yeah, and I think the same way with the 110 hurdles, I see the officials putting them up and they're up to like their chests for the most part. I'm like, I don't know how you guys even clear that. I would have a torn everything after my first time trying to do it. But I think with most sports in general, like the better you are, obviously, Devon, you're a world-class 110-meter hurdler. I like to think of myself as a pretty good 1,500-meter runner. You get the comments like, oh, you make it look easy. And these guys make it look easy swimming, but it's anything but that. So to see it in person and to, if you were to get in the pool with somebody who is a world-class swimmer, you kind of could feel that power of, oh my gosh, this is a different level.
It totally was. Like when we were shooting with him, one of the guys who was in the water, we had him on fins with like GoPros and stuff, and he's like, okay, David, you're gonna dive in, and then once you dive in, I'm gonna get going. And David's like, no, you're gonna have to start now, and then I'm gonna go past you very quickly.
Yeah, that was like when we did our shoot. Remember, you guys were trying to get in the back of the golf cart and like get me out of the blocks and going. I was like, you guys have to like get going before I start running. I'm going to be past you.
I think it was we did one take like that you just like blew past it, and then we're just like, oh yeah. And so the shot that's in your episode of the Science of Hurdles, it's a great shot, but we're literally like, I think at the second barrier, and you're just starting, and then you just blow past us, you know.
Yeah, that's why I've said they should put an average person in every race. You know, one average person in the 110-meter hurdles, just to show, you know, it's not as easy as it looks. Put an average person in the pool with these guys, and it'd be interesting comparison for sure. Because when you're against a bunch of other world-class athletes, it does look easy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's why I think the Olympics are so special. One, all the sports are kind of intermingled with each other, right? So you get to interact with all the athletes. And two, it's so easy to bop around from sport to sport, right? As a fan, even as an athlete that's not competing on the day. When I have gone to the last two Olympics, you know, I watched a whole bunch of different sports. And I think it's so impressive, you know, the difference in body type for one, right? Like it's so different. You could tell the basketball players walking around the village because they're the only people that are 7 feet tall. But, you know, the body types and the sizes and the strengths of everybody is very special. And just how elite everybody is something very specific, right? Like, you know, I watched the velodrome cycling, right? And that's so different. You know, you're sitting in a giant stadium that's banked like an indoor track. And there are these guys that are probably, you know, 6 foot, $160, $155, super skinny, but their legs are the size of my waist, right? Wow. Their legs are huge. And they're just flying around this track going like 30, 40 miles an hour. And until you see it in person, right, we get to watch the Olympics on TV. And that's, you know, a great thing because we have easy access. But until you go to these events and see them in person, you just don't really understand, which I think, one, it's special to be a fan of the Olympics in Paris right now. But coming up for the 2028 Olympics is going to be really special for U.S. fans, you know, being able to kind of ease of travel to see all their favorite athletes compete as well. So just really exciting, you know, this time of year, every 4 years is an amazing feeling for the athletes and just an awesome fan experience in general.
Yeah, I think I saw one of those velodrome cyclists on Instagram, and that's why his Instagram handle's Quadzilla. So it made sense once you saw the videos of what they were doing.
Exactly.
And yeah, track and field to me is the craziest sport in that regard because you'll have somebody, obviously, 110-meter hurdler, a 1,500-meter runner like myself, or, you know, maybe a shot putter like Ryan Krauser. Same sport, but you couldn't have more specific body types. You see the high jumpers are all super tall and skinny. Decathletes obviously more well-rounded, and then you got a 10,000-meter runner standing next to Ryan Krauser that don't even look like the same species. So it's funny the specificity you see in track.
Hey Quincy, drop one of those Krauser lifting videos in here because
I just lifted today. I think it's gonna make me feel bad. So I don't know.
Oh my god! Like this is with you guys, it's the same story though. There's levels to this game, and it's like when we shot with Ryan, it was in late January or February, so it was cold in Fayetteville. He's built a garage that's his, you know, lifting gym. It's like the best, you know, world-class gym. Yeah, it is. He's got the bad couch over there for like me and his dad to sit on, you know. Like,
yeah, you have to. The couch you've had for like 30 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, he was working out with I think it was Eric Sullins, and they're like, did you guys get your shot yet? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you know, we're just going to keep lifting. And I'm like, we're going to keep staying. It was a 90-minute session, and we shot the whole thing. And it was just crazy to see the amount of weight being thrown around and the, you know, the Bulgarian, what are those ones called, Devin? The
Bulgarian split squats. Yeah, he's doing like 400 pounds. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah. Well, and I think too, like with Krauser, you know, obviously, you see him being big and strong, and you know his events power oriented with throwing a shot put. But if you see that guy move, right? Like if you've seen Ryan Krauser sprint, he can keep up with probably the best sprinters in the world for like the first, you know, 10 meters or so.
Yeah, it's not that video, Quincy. So here's this. We actually had a little YouTube video go viral because Boogie Johnson, in an interview, said, I'll put Usain Bolt and I'll put Ryan Krauser in a three-point stand in the blocks, and I'll take Ryan Krauser 100% of the time 100%. In the first 10 to 20 meters. And so we put that video out on YouTube Shorts, and we got 53,000 views and like 300 hours of watch time. And there must have been 70 comments in there going, there's no way. And I'm like, And then like I even texted Megan, and I'm like, have you seen him in the block? Because I've never seen him in the blocks. Megan's like, oh yeah, it's something to watch. So
well,
Devin, you've seen him do it.
I've seen it, and I hate to say, like, he probably can beat me in a 10-meter too, unfortunately. Right. And I'm one of the best sprinters in the world. So, I'm not going to say that many more times, but yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see. And that's the thing about all these sports is like, we're elite at one specific thing or a few specific things. And like, you walk around, I'm in Phoenix right now, and there's probably there's no one that could beat Henry in a mile in Phoenix, for a fact. But there's probably less than like 10 people that can beat Henry in like a 50-yard dash, right? Just because he is, his event is a 15 more distance oriented, but those guys are so fast as well. Like a normal human just can't keep up, and really any distance. So, and Ryan Krause is the same way, right? If he was like, if he did a YouTube video and like had a sign that said, hey, beat me in a 40-yard dash and I'll, give you $100, there would be no one that can walk up from the street and beat him. Maybe like if I saw him post it and I like found where he was, like I could beat him, but like no one else could do that.
Yeah, we'll have you dress up with a wig and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's just so impressive, and you see it time and time again at all the Olympic sports, which is why people love sports and love watching it. Right? Like we're all fans of something because it's something that we can't do. Right? Like I love watching basketball and baseball because I just can't do that. Do it how these guys are doing it. Yeah, I like to play it, but it's just so impressive.
Hey, before we get into some of these other sports and talking a little bit about fencing, gymnastics, swimming, all these other sports, I did want Quincy, if you could drop in the D2 video, which is he talks about, I asked a question of how do you coach a relay team? And I noticed Henry recently did a relay. So let's listen to this. You guys turn the sound on.
Different aspects because we look at the leg-based program. Obviously, the United States can be a complicated program to coach because of all the talent we have, and unfortunately, we don't get everyone that's as good as they are here. It doesn't get an opportunity because our trials are so complex, and you take it in each segment. And you actually have to coach athletes up. And I think coaching relay is like coaching any athlete, period. You coach the athlete and not the event. And that's the most important aspect of it. And people look at it pretty much the other way around. And so when you look at it as an event aspect, that's what makes it more difficult. But if you coach the athlete, you give each one of them an opportunity to be the best they can. And obviously point out all of their efficiencies as well as deficiencies and try to make the necessary adjustments in time for competition, which is really difficult because our athletes are typically in individual events and sometimes multiple events, which can make it very difficult to get them together at one time throughout the course of the year.
How do you coach a relay team? What I found really interesting. So first of all, Devin, why don't you set the stage of who D2 is for everybody first, and then I want to kind of tee up a question for you guys.
Yeah, D2 is a sprint coach, a pro sprint coach out of I think he's out of Texas right now, and he is one of the relay coaches for Team USA. That's in Paris, and his job, right, along with a few others, is to help those relay teams get to stick around, right, and I think there's a little bit of the USA on paper is always the strongest for sprinters. And so what he's saying is the truth, right? It's difficult because you have the four strongest sprinters usually, and you have to do something that you don't really do all year round, right? These guys that run relays, they don't do handoff exchanges a lot. They don't work with each other a lot, right? They're in different camps and different groups. So it's difficult to get them together. And so we spend the 4 or 5 days for relay camp, and so his job is pretty difficult because he's trying to get these guys locked in and fine-tuned for relay camp, and then they go off and do their singular events, right? They run the 100, the 200, the 400, and then they have to come back towards the end of the track section of the Olympics and like remember what they worked on 2 weeks ago. So that's the trick, right? A lot of teams don't have the athletes that can really are medal contenders, right? You got teams like that are really good in the relays. Canada, right? They got Andre DeGrasse, that's a legit medal contender. But some of the other guys, might make a final, but they're unlikely to win a medal. Japan's the same way, right? When's the last time we saw a Japanese guy in the 100-meter final? But every world champs, every Olympic games, they're right there in the mix of it. Same thing with Italy, right? They got Marcel with the being an Olympic gold medalist, but they had 3 other guys that are kind of middle of the road. But that exchange and those relay exchanges are so important because that's kind of where you're winning the race. It doesn't really matter how fast you are. So it's definitely difficult as a coach to try to put this together so quickly in a few days right before the Olympic Games. But hey, that's part of it.
Hey Henry, what is when D2 is talking about coaching the athlete, not the event? What does he mean there? What do you think he's kind of referencing?
I am not an expert on especially sprint relays. I've never had to do one. But as a distance runner, I do things like the sprint medley relay, distance medley relay, and I think a lot of these athletes are coming in with they're obviously Olympians already, so they're amazing at their own event, and they've probably been in a college program. When Devon went to the Olympics the past 2 years, he'd been at the University of Oregon running the 4x1 there. So you have to kind of learn their strengths and weaknesses very quickly as an athlete, get them to meld with a group of other guys like Devon's already hit on that they don't train with all the time. And so obviously they have experience coming in. They're not fresh out the box. They know how to do a relay. They're focused on their own event for the most part. So I think it's really what he probably means in that regard is just like making sure that you're maybe dusting the cobwebs off a little bit if you haven't done a relay in a while, and just like seeing what their strengths and weaknesses are to put together the strongest relay for the U.S. It's definitely, I wouldn't say the most enviable job being the relay coach, because there's a lot of downside as the U.S. relay coach, because like Devon said, you have the 4 best guys probably in the world, so why aren't you winning? But like he also mentions, they're not training together. And a lot of these other countries, they do have they train in similar facilities. They probably have been training with the same 4 guys, so they have that advantage. And, the U.S. has had troubles in the past, dropping the baton and, not winning these races. And so it's definitely not an easy job to quickly put this together.
And Henry put it and hit around the head with, these athletes have a lot of strengths, but also some weaknesses, right? Like there's a lot of athletes that ran a lot of relays in college, right? And that'd be a benefit. Maybe you put that athlete at the second leg or third leg because they're receiving the baton and they're handing it off, right? They feel more comfortable doing both. If they don't have a lot of experience and they don't feel comfortable, maybe they just anchor or first leg. All they have to do is hand off once, right? Or just take the baton and not worry about it. So, that's a big decision to make too, because, you have like a stereotypical first leg, second leg, third leg, fourth leg, but sometimes those guys don't always fit that mold because of their experience. And there's, just overall experience on that level and that stage, right? Like you have those guys that have run in world champs and other Olympic games on the relay. So they feel comfortable doing that already. Doesn't mean, they're the best for the job. And sometimes, the fastest guy is not the best for the job, right? It's just like, it's hard to say. It's hard to say that because, objectively, if I was running 9.8 in the 100, I'm on the relay.
Right.
And there could be argument that says maybe I shouldn't be, or whatever. So it's very political, and that's part of it. Like it gets a little bit political, when we get down that road in terms of who's on the team, who's not on the team, who they're going to even bring over there, to have a chance. And so like Henry said, like it's enviable to be a relay coach, but it's a difficult job and you have a lot of pressure. The athletes have a lot of pressure for one, but the coaches too, because if you win, all things, everything's good in cupcake land. But
that's literally what D2 said.
Yeah,
literally what he said.
So.
And Devon, I got a question for you. Like when you were at the University of Oregon, like how much were you practicing these handoffs and things like that?
So I was on the relay my whole time there. In all different spots, first leg, second leg, anchor. And we practice around competitions maybe like once a week. And usually on our sprint days. And D2 makes a good point because we're on the same team and we train at the same time, like similar times. but we're on different like programs, right? Like, Coach Rad was our relay coach at Oregon, and the sprinters are all doing the same thing. But me being a hurdler, I was kind of like on a different page with my coach, and so my coach is like, all right, well, warm up, go do your relay handoffs, and then let's go. Like let's get moving. You don't want to be there all day, and so you got to kind of balance the moving parts. And same thing with the pros, like those guys have their training blocks that are very specific. What training workouts they need to do, like what efforts, like leading up to the games, leading up to their races, right? Like a week out. So their coach is going to be like, hey, get your handoffs in, but don't do more than 3. Right. So if you don't figure it out in 3 handoffs, sometimes like, an elite athlete his coach is going to shut them down and they're kind of out of luck. All right, figure it out from there. Like, adjust it from what you guys worked on. And that's just being realistic. You got to work with what you got.
Yeah. And I think something that a lot of fans probably don't think about is, the relay is important and we want to see the U.S. win gold, but they're there for their individual events first. So like you said, you're not going to mess up one of your key workouts going into the games to do handoffs or do too many sprints doing that. So
for sure.
I definitely, I think the U.S. is going to do great. They have the talent pool. And yeah, I look forward to watching them race. Luckily, as a distance guy myself, if you drop the baton in a 4x8 or a DMR, you kind of are just clumsy. So it's not quite as much pressure.
One other thing I want to talk about, because that's a team thing, and Quincy, you can interrupt us in a little bit if we go too long with maybe one of your fun facts about obscure sports. But this idea of, like, you see the teamwork in a relay, right? The same thing in swimming, you see it. As you're in the team competition in gymnastics, you see it. But what I always find fascinating, what I tell a lot of people, is Team USA comes together like a couple of times. This concept of Team USA, it doesn't exist in your day-to-day. You're there for yourself as an athlete. You don't go to an individual meet in the Diamond League and run for Team USA, so. And then I always find it interesting because your team really, like with the Brooks Beasts, like your team are those teammates that might be from different countries, Marta or Josh, right?
Yep.
But Team USA, like, I always find it so interesting because you'll see it on camera, you'll see like you going up to Josh, but the normal person watching is like, why is the U.S. guy going to the Great Britain guy?
Yeah, it's definitely a weird dynamic in that regard. I'm gonna call it like the Love Island effect though for Team USA, because they go out there, they spend 2 weeks together in the villa, and all of a sudden they're very close. So they want to perform when it comes down to it. And obviously, you've got the country's expectations on your back, which makes it very exciting. But it's not going to be the same chemistry that you had as a college team or a high school team or as a pro team of guys putting together one of these relays. You obviously want to do very well, and they will do well, but it's not quite. You're not hanging out with them every day, not at training camp every day, so it's not quite the I would say the extra boost that a relay might normally give you, where you have your friends and your close teammates counting on you.
I'm thinking I'm going to skip that second D2 interview that we can bring that into another episode, but I'm constantly fascinated by how you guys, elite athletes, harness all your talent, all your energy, all your focus at the right time in the right moment, usually on the biggest stage. Like, how do you guys do that?
I feel like this is a good one for Devon to start off with, because like when I watch his event, I'm like, at least in the 15, you kind of have some time to shake out. Like it doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, the start matters a bit, but it's not the same thing as the 110 meter hurdle. So I was always amazed that like I feel so much adrenaline, so much excitement. I don't know how you guys stand on the blocks and like wait for that gun to go off. It just seems so nerve-wracking. So I think it'd be great for you to start it.
Yeah, I guess, I probably have a little bit of an issue if you think about 2022 world champs, but
I've got an issue with that too, for the record.
Yeah.
But
No, I think, right, like how we prepare, right? Obviously, the athletes that are all competing at this level have the talent, right? There's not really a question about that. And the work ethic. There's no one right? There's no one really working harder than someone else. Like that doesn't exist at this level, because it's just like, yes, like you could take it a little bit more seriously, or you can, do this better, do that better. But that really comes down to discipline, right? Like discipline in your regiment and your recovery and how you train and how you eat and all those things. But for the most part, being ready right at the right time and ready to go is a little bit of like luck, because, we're pushing our bodies so hard. We're pushing that envelope. This is like the limit, and we're right there all the time. And if you go over, you're going to get hurt or, pick up an injury or, something else is going to happen. So it's kind of luck, because, we're trying to get this timing and everything perfect. And then 2, just consistent, like examples of what works year over year, right? Like, when you have a good year, you try to build off of that. And like a lot of athletes just do the same thing over and over, which can be good and bad, right? Like if you had a good year and you just copy that year and you have a good year the next year, like, okay, that's like the baseline. And then you tweak it. And that's what mostly a coach does to help, right? Is his job or her job is to fine tune and tweak all those like small details in your training program in order for you to be ready in that exact moment. And then, with that being said, like it comes down to like feeling good and having the confidence, because no matter how like confident you are mentally, if you didn't do the training and you didn't put the work in, you can't fake it. It's not going to be there. But if you come into a meet and you're like, man, this is the best shape I've ever been in. This is the best I ever felt in my life. I'm ready to go. Like you're going to run that way. And it's just, you can see that year over year. And a lot of athletes that are just like, that do well are just unbeaten, right? Like they come in with the confidence that they're ready to go and they're going to win. And so I think that's the biggest kind of like, greatness factor, is that level of confidence and like, just knowing that you have it leading up to a major competition. Yeah,
can you jump over a kitchen counter? I certainly can't. But to be able to do that 10 times over and over with perfection truly takes a unique individual.
Devon Allen, 13:11.
This is the Science of Hurdles with Devon Allen.
As a distance runner, it's more like just wearing your body down to the point where like you can't take risks getting sick. Like that razor's edge really becomes one of these things where it's like you make one tiny mistake and the past 6 months has been thrown out. So I think especially, I mean, you can I'm sure agree on this, but going into the Olympic trials, like I didn't quite realize how stressed I was about it, just because I was like, I can't get injured, I can't get sick, I can't like see people that I don't trust, like all this type of stuff. And so, obviously that's a bit of a stress, but I think what gives me the most confidence when I go into these major championships is like being able to tell myself that I didn't leave anything on the table. So if I'm, at the start line and I'm like, all right, I did my nutrition, I did my heat training, I did my actual training, I did XYZ sports psych, all that kind of stuff. Really, the weight's kind of taken off your shoulders. Now you do have to perform, but you have to trust the people around you. So you trust your coaches, you trust your nutritionists and your athletic trainers and all that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of dispersing the mental load a little bit, and trusting the system that you're in. And so obviously, yeah, like Devon said, like nobody really trains harder than anybody else. Like there's harder workouts here. Some people recover a little bit better, but as a professional athlete, we're all kind of psychotic in the way we train. I like to tell people, especially younger athletes, high schoolers, college kids, if they ever ask, like it's easier for a great athlete to push themselves too hard than it is for them to get themselves to relax a little bit. So I think that's something I've learned over my years as a pro, is like sometimes the smartest thing you can do for your training is to take a day off, which sounds like people don't want to be lazy, but Devon can run faster, he can run harder, he can injure himself any day of the week if he really wanted to. Same with me. I could go out and run 20 miles and tear my hamstring. I could do that easily, but sometimes the hardest thing to do is just be like, all right, I'm feeling a little banged up, like maybe I just rest today. And so just kind of taking care of those little things throughout the year, and yeah, of course, learning from both successes and mistakes, and building and trying to just like have building blocks year after year. And so yeah, you see people who are very successful, they don't really stagnate, they don't necessarily do the exact same thing, but they have a playbook, and then they take one piece out, they add another one. And I'm sure if we had Ryan Krauser on here, he hasn't been doing the same thing for the past 10 years, but he's probably done a lot of the similar things and learned what works and what doesn't.
That playbook analogy is perfect, right? You got your playbook you start training camp with, and then you run that play a few times. You're like, damn, this play sucks. Like, get that out of there. Like, let's put a new one in. And that's perfect analogy. Like, you know, you have a baseline of like your training and what works for you, and then you kind of keep adding to it, taking away from it. And, you know, it's just it's kind of like a guessing game, and that's why the coaches that are really good coaches get paid a ton, because they're good at it. And Henry made a good point too, just to reiterate, is like the years that I've run my best are the years that like I feel like I'm training the least, right?
Really?
Like I'm coming in, like, you know, working with my coach. My coach is very like, hey, how do you feel today? I'm like, not great. He's like, all right, let's just warm up and shake out today. We'll come back tomorrow. I'll try to do the workout, right? And that's important, because you're only getting better when you're like pushing that envelope, right? Like, you can't do that every day. So, you know, you're going to push the envelope a day and then take a few days off, and then push the envelope the day and take a few days off. So I find that better. I know distance athletes have a little bit more like of a, you know, running base. Like, you know, you do your mileage, and that's just like one part of it. And then your sprint work is another part of it. And like you said, your training in the heat is another part of it. And then your active recovery, right? Like maybe that's a bike or Alter G or like a swim. Like, so that's a big difference in just the events, right? For me, it's mostly just sprinting. But for maybe a distance athlete, I don't know specifically, but I can guess you're not on the track. You're probably on the track twice a week, maybe, you know,
maybe even less.
Towards the end of the season. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like before that, even less, because like what you do or what you're trying to improve is like always like, you know, early in the season, building that engine, right? Like you build the engine, you have your natural attributes, you're naturally fast. So like you're going to rely on that when it comes to like major champs and stuff. And so when it's time to kick into that training, like it comes back quickly. And that's impressive. Like the thing about even the distance athletes, like we said earlier, is like everyone is different. You know, it's maybe similar body types, but everybody's like strengths are different. Same thing with hurdlers, right? You look at all these guys, like, you know, Grant super tall has a great start and like the best starter in the world and just gets out on everybody. And then maybe I'm just in the middle of the road, but my finish is one of the best in the world. And so like, that's kind of where we even out. And it's like that in every event.
Yeah. This is an interesting, interesting side note I feel like about training. And obviously this isn't all about distance running, but like one of the things that people have probably noticed in the past few years is like the 800 meters, the 1500 meters, the 5K have all improved very drastically across the board, globally and within the US. I think a big thing that people have been doing is they do, you know, they wear more heart rate monitors. They do this lactic threshold testing, like where they prick their ear and you get like a lactate number. And so it really takes the guesswork out of it, because, you know, it's tough. And, you know, Devin, you can back me up as an athlete. If you're in front of your entire training group and your coach is like, how are you feeling? Sometimes it's tough to be like, oh, I feel like shit, because you don't want to be that guy. And so this, you know, and you're like, oh, I feel good, whatever. And then you go do a workout, but you push yourself a little too hard on the given day. You haven't recovered well. This is like takes the guesswork out of it. A lot of the metrics that people are able to get, you know, people are wearing sleep trackers, they're wearing heart rate monitors, they're doing this testing. Now all of a sudden it's a number where it's like, you're not ready to perform today, go home and relax. Where in the past people would just push through and kind of, you know, bang their head against the wall a lot of times.
For sure.
And these are all common across all sports, right? I mean, everything at the Olympics. I mean, it's all, there's a schedule to the training, an arc to the training to peak at the right times. I remember Shelly-Ann, when we were doing some work with her, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, and she's like, I can only peak once, maybe twice a whole year. So like, wow, okay. Like, and she's the greatest female sprinter of all time, you know? And so I guess, yeah, understanding your body, how you need to get to that spot to peak at the exact time is kind of it's almost like Devin chefing it up in the kitchen, right? You got to know
I personally go through this crisis at least like once a year, where I run a crappy race in April and I'm like, oh, I'm cooked. I'm done for. But, you know, then my coach pulls me aside. He's like, listen, you never run well in April, but you always run well at US championships. And it's like, you know, you just have to talk to yourself through it a lot of times. And yeah, it is, you know, peaking at the right time, because nobody cares if you go and win the invite in March or April. They care if you win the US championships. And so sometimes it's good to remember that.
Well, and here's one thing too. You say that, it is important, right? Like I'm all towards winning a U.S. champs and, making a world team or Olympic team. That's super important for your trajectory of your career. But as professionals, I think it's very important. And a lot of people get caught up with like performing at, random invite so-and-so, right? Like it's important because that's how we make money.
Right.
Like as much as I am loaded and don't want to travel to Europe right after, the New York Grand Prix in 2022. But 3-4 weeks before USA's, I got to go over there because that's how I make a living. And that's just, it is what it is. And so, it's like you said, sometimes you run crappy and you just got to kind of know where you're at in your season. And either, if you're early and you kind of know that you're not ready to run fast, then it's okay. If you're like a little bit later and you're like, ooh, that could be a red flag, and maybe like it'll help you lock in a little bit. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to drop in a couple of videos. This is a video here of Yul Moldauer. So Yul is obviously a gymnast, and this is when we first walked into his gym in Denver. He's doing the vault. This is in real time. We didn't speed that up. I came away from our shoot with Yul over like 3 days saying, I think gymnasts are the best all-around athletes because they're pushing every element of their body to crazy levels. Like whether it's
there's a ton of strength and power.
It's honestly the most brutal event.
When Yul is landing some of these tumbling passes, the impact of that landing is sending 17 times his body weight up through what we call the chain. With each, there's a ton of strength and power.
It's honestly the most brutal event.
Obviously,
when
I'm a track
landing some of these tumbling.
It's like the original sport in the Olympics, right? Like,
the essence of gymnastics is showing what the body can do, what the mind can do. And if you put those two things together, you can do some pretty insane things. Different skills and a variety of techniques. There's so many. And it's just so interesting that you can always be better. So to chase that, I think that's why I like it so much.
A little bit of technical work with the actual jumping and going over the hurdle.
It's really incredible that fencing is the only combat sport with no weight classes.
Any other sport, right? Like let's just say basketball. One, you have
Did you know
your
the tip
physical
of a
shape
fencing blade moves as fast as a speeding bullet?
Size, weight, have to be in good shape. And then there's so much more technical aspect in some of those things, right? Like, being able to move in space and flip and tackle the front flip side, whatever. And gymnastics or even basketball, right? Like you have to be fast, strong, athletic, but also be able to dribble and pass and shoot, right? So that's what's impressive. Obviously, like I'm biased towards track because that's what we do. But when it comes down to it, it's probably one of the more simpler sports. This is also what makes it very cool because it's truly just cool.
This is one of the reasons, this series that we produce, right? Science movement and teaching one athlete in individual sports, right? Down there. All of you guys, every shoot is oh my god. And we've been at this a while, as you guys know.
My hair is standing on end just thinking about it.
And always in different ways, breakdancing with Emily. That was just astonishing to see what he does. Fencing with Khalil Thompson. The one thing that really I came away with that one fencing was there's very few sports in the Olympics or anywhere really that you have to be fast, you have to be quick, you have to be agile. And you have an opponent across you who has a weapon. There's no weight classes in fencing. So he could be going up against these 5'10". There's one fencer who's only 6'5". It's just constant amazement in what you guys can get your body to do. Pole vault. I know that's a sport you love. Like that's one of those you love watching,
Pole
right?
vault is figuring out how to take all of this energy, put it into the pole, and get as much of that energy back out the top of the pole as you possibly can.
You're fast, you're quick,
Speed is very important when it comes to being able to launch yourself in the air. That is where the energy comes from.
These pole vaulters are amazing. They're fast, they're powerful, and they're dynamic.
A sprinter is as fast as a human can be. A shot putter is
Have you
as
ever
strong
watched
as a
a
human can be.
rocket
And so it's like,
take off into the
you might
atmosphere?
not be a well-rounded athlete in that regard, but you have like reached like you put all your
Think
stats
about the
in
combustion
one event.
and the
Like, you get to
power
see,
and
like,
the
how good
fire
humans can
and the
actually be in
force
something.
and the float
And then these
and
other
the
sports, I mean,
fact that it blasts off into the sky and you're never going to see it again.
You know, things that I don't necessarily
Sprinters are doing that here on Earth. These athletes brush up against the true limits of human motion.
Fencing, not something I watch all the time, but very impressive. And I
You
know
will
for a
never
fact
move
that if
that
I wouldn't go out
fast
there,
if
I
you're-
wouldn't even get close to getting a point. So it's like very cool to see.
You literally, as soon as I walked in to scout that location, so Khalil, he lives in New Jersey, and he takes a bus to the train to get to the facility, which is on the second floor at 33rd Street and 6th. So literally looking out the window of that content is the Empire State Building. So, and that's New York, right? It's like all these obscure places where there's 30 of the greatest fencers in the world. You just walk in and there they are. You know what I mean? Like this is us following him,
Also, just a quick reminder, for those watching, you can press the volume tab on the video in order to like get the volume or not get the volume.
Exactly.
If that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
But I didn't know this, but literally in seconds, I'm like, oh, I can't even see what happened. So like the scoring system in fencing is so difficult because the tip of the blade moves faster than a bullet.
It's really incredible that fencing is the only combat sport with no weight classes.
Well, and that's an athletic sport, but like most of the competition takes place.
Did you know the tip of a fencing blade moves as fast as a speeding bullet?
So Khalil wears glasses, and when he was young, he had bad vision. They didn't know he needed glasses, whatever, right? So he couldn't play baseball, whatever. But he's like, actually, I think it's an advantage.
This is a science of fencing.
I'm
Me
more
and
of a
Khalil
field
Thompson.
guy. So it's the cadence of him hearing the beat. It's this rhythm of this battle that's taking place.
It's really incredible that.
Yeah, exactly. I just found it fascinating, this idea of a combative sport like that.
I'm excited to hear you guys talking to gymnasts and people who do such different sports than Devon and I do. I mean, one thing just watching the video of the gymnastics is like the trust that you have in yourself to just sprint as fast as you can, hurdle or vault yourself.
Gymnastics is movement.
Almost guarantee you're going to land.
The essence of gymnastics is showing what the body can do, what the mind can do.
More about what that mindset is like.
And if you put those two things together, you can do some pretty insane things.
It really is insane. No, it's
different skills and a variety of techniques. There's so many. And it's just so interesting that you can always be better. So to chase that, I think that's why I like it so much.
This is the science of gymnastics with Yul Moldauer.
His son is his coach too. Who he won bronze for the U.S. in like I don't know 84 or something, whatever. And but I think the trust is built on this family that they've built. What was crazy at that gym is you would have 4, 5, 6-year-olds training at the same place as Yul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like when you guys are training at like a public track, and there's just little old ladies power walking.
Oh yeah,
this is true. Get after it. I mean, I respect it. Get after it. You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. It's only a problem when you have to yell lane 1 mid-workout, but otherwise everybody use the track.
I'm lucky because I have barriers like in my lane, so people kind of like feel like they can't walk in that lane anyways. Which
Devon, one thing that the very first time I saw hurdles was when we were shooting you in Des Moines in like 2018 or something, and I quickly found out this is a violent event. Like it's so loud. I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, like you can't hear any of this on TV. Like,
like the grunting and then like the
grunting,
the hurdles,
yeah. Like it's a violent event that's like you're just holding your breath. I don't know how you do it, because it is like as a viewer, you're just like holding your breath like for 13 seconds.
Well, and that's the cool thing is like some of those.
I was gonna say, I'm guessing you don't hear anything.
No, I don't hear anything. Yeah, I black out. Yeah, but like when I see videos and stuff, and Alex did that video of me where I was mic'd up at Penn Relays, right? So like, and you can just hear one just be like, right, and then like the fans and like the crashing of the hurdles and all that stuff, which is pretty cool. Like, but like Henry said, most times, especially when I have a good race, I don't hear anything. I just kind of like tunnel vision.
You probably don't even get a deep breath throughout the entire race. You probably finish like winded.
No, it's so quick. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I get the breath. Like you can hear if you stand near the finish line, you can always hear it. Like set, and everybody goes.
That's
right?
wild.
So, but it's a cool part of the event. I'm sure maybe distance athletes probably don't take a big breath right before, but I do. Like I ran the 15 a few times in my career as a decathlete when I was younger. And just kind of like, hearing people breathing around you is a little bit like nerve-wracking sometimes. You're like, oh, are they like coming up on me, or like are they just kind of settling in, or like what's going on here?
Yeah, actually, we do take deep breaths. I feel like it's always a good thing to just center yourself on the start line. You don't have to. We're obviously going to be breathing a lot during our race, but it's one of those like be in the moment type of thing.
We got to mic you up for a race.
Yeah, just be more chaotic than I think you guys think in the middle of those packs, because like people are tripping up, and you might catch a few swear words or somebody telling you off.
It's crazy, right? You got. I think the 15 is a fascinating event because it has to be strategic, and it's kind of a death run at the same time. I mean, that's a long time to be running essentially at full speed.
The cool thing you get with the distance running events and is when you do hear your opponents breathing or start breathing heavier, it's like, I don't know if this is everybody, I'm sure it's a lot of athletes, but you become like a bit of a shark in the water. You smell blood and you're like, oh, that guy's breathing heavy. Like, time to put my foot on his throat right now. So it's like people will make the decisions based on like how the people around them are sounding or feeling. Like if you think that you're about to break somebody, you just push the gas a little bit more and see what happens. And so there's some mental games happening throughout, and some mind games.
I mean, that could be a play though. Like I could like fake like, and then get you to go early, and then slingshot engaged off the last turn.
I don't know if anybody's thinking of that, but that's the move.
That's the play.
The how much? Well, Quincy's showing this. How much of the rounds? Like I don't think people understand. Like in the Olympics, in the sports you guys are in, there's rounds to these events. How much does managing your energy and physical and mental, how much does that play a role in how successful you are, during those world championships, Olympics, etc.?
Yeah. It's really in the back of your mind. Well, specifically for me with 1500, obviously it takes a lot of energy, but I kind of keep in the back of my mind because I tell myself nobody cares if you're not tired if you don't make the next round. So you got to make sure you're making the next round first and foremost, and then you can start worrying about, how do I recover off of this? In the race itself, the worst thing you can do is think to yourself, like, how do I run this as easily as possible? Obviously, you see people kind of let off at the line if maybe they have a gap and things like that. It doesn't really help you that much. Like it's more of a showboating technique, I would say. But really the important part is recovering off of, the rounds into the next one. Because, like I said, you could have a lot of energy left watching it from the stands. And nobody's going to care.
Yeah. And like you said, mentally, too, it's just like you don't want to be turned on like the whole time because you'll just get fried that way. Right. A lot of times, like, you go to – I try not to ever go to the track early. Like as much as I want to watch events and stuff like that, like if I'm racing at 5 p.m. and call times at 4:30 or 4:40, like I'm going to get there at like 3:30, right? So I have about an hour to warm up, and like I'm almost rushed in my warm up, because for the most part, if I do a good warm up in terms of just like sprinting and running, like technically I'm not going to get better like in the 30 minutes before my race. So really all about how I feel, like just feeling good leading into a competition and not wearing myself out. A lot of times, like I see a lot of young, especially in the hurdles, because it's difficult because you're like doing these like actual technical part of the race. I see a lot of young guys wearing themselves out like before a race where they're doing like a whole bunch of block starts, bam, bam, bam. And it's interesting to me because, their coach should, have the final say in like backing them off sometimes. And, I think the balance, like you got to trust, you got to trust what your coach says, but also as an athlete, you got to be like, hey, I'm starting to get tired. Like I'm wearing out. Because at some point, right, like, how many, you do a sprint workout how many times a month, Henry? Like once a week, maybe?
Once a month, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
We'll add in strides and things like that, but yeah, not sprint.
Yeah, but like a legit sprint workout, right? You're not doing like, what are you doing, like 200s?
Probably like 400s and 200s. Like, yeah, we don't get too crazy.
Yeah, but you're not doing like 30 200s.
No.
Like, there's like a limit to like improving.
Yeah.
To some extent, right? So like, going to a race and doing 10 block starts before your race. Like,
yeah. And I think a lot of the times that's more the athlete's kind of nervousness showing.
100%. Yeah. And that's like
I don't know if you can speak on this as well, but I go to races and a lot of times I feel so tired and I'm like, why? Like, I know I'm in great shape. I know I've slept well the night before. Like, why am I tired right now? And I talked to my sports psych this year and she's like, that's kind of just your mind switching gears. It knows it's about to do something very hard. So it kind of preemptively is acting tired. Yeah. And so a lot of people, they'll do a really hard warm up or they'll do a lot of sprints or a lot of starts just to like force themselves out of that. But sometimes it's good to just know that that's a process that your body's going to go through, and just like trust that once you get in the call room and the adrenaline starts kicking in, you get on the start line, you'll wake up. Don't worry.
That adrenaline is undefeated.
Yeah. And it's even like it's such a minutia, like down to like when I did a DMR earlier this year, our team was going for the world record, which we did end up getting, which was great. But
that was at Oregon, right?
Sorry, what?
Was that at Oregon?
That was Oregon, yep, at the Oregon relays. And so like I was the 1,600 meter leg of that, and I went to my teammates I was before. I was like, don't get mad at me, but I'm not going to cheer you guys on. Like I was just sitting on like the rail next to the track, like, I know I have to do a mile by myself, so you don't want to waste any energy even yelling for your teammates during relay.
That's cool.
That's a better move. That's a better move because I'd have been like, let's go. And then I get the baton. Like,
that was probably one of those things that doesn't actually make a difference. But, in your head, you're like, all right, this is the last % I need.
As long as it makes sense in your head, that's all that matters.
Yeah. I actually learned at this Olympic trials, though, that, you can be tired and still run a lifetime best. Doesn't matter. Three races in 4 days, hard rounds, all that type of stuff. And you go into the final and it's really like, you're going to put everything you have out there to make these teams. And so I've been telling myself that in practice, like, I'll show up to a workout post trials a little tired. I'm like, I don't need to be feeling good. I ran 3:32 and I felt so tired coming off of a bunch of races. So it's like, 100%. A lot of times it is just mental.
That's so interesting. And I think that's the stuff that I love hearing you guys talk about and translating that into life even. Like me doing a workout after I eat dinner tonight, I'm going to go on my bike ride, even though I'm tired because I got to do something. But I think that's so cool to hear from elite athletes to go, yeah, it's, a little bit of mind over matter kind of thing, right? Yeah. 2 things before we head out. I mean, actually 3 things because we're coming up on time.
I got one too. Before we wrap up, what are you guys most excited about watching, other than obviously track? What events?
You go first, Henry.
So I got a few. I've been seeing some Instagram posts and reels about these like beach volleyball stadiums and stuff that are all around the
I know
Eiffel Tower. I'm definitely gonna be watching that. I heard about an interview, about the surfing. They're in Tahiti. Oh, they're down in Tahiti, and apparently some of these U.S. surfers were like, "Yeah, these people aren't ready for these waves." So I'm kind of interested to see how that's gonna play out. So a sport that I don't, was that in the last Olympics? I don't even know, but I definitely didn't watch it. I think it was.
I think it was in the last one. That was the first.
Yeah,
time.
So it'll be interesting.
Oh my God! Look at these waves.
Yeah. Apparently the waves are pretty big. Yeah. They're saying.
Oh man.
So
the one surfing for you, Henry. The one I'm really, really interested in, besides track and field, because I have enough knowledge to be dangerous in track and field, just from hanging around with you guys. But I'm really into gymnastics this year after this shoot, and I'm dying to see fencing. If no one has seen Miles Chamley-Watson, who's a U.S. fencer, he's really stylish in how he does what he does. I've shot with him in the past, back in 2016. And he's just like a cool dude who is also pretty stylish, off the field of play as well. But gymnastics, I'm dying to see some of that. Yeah, here's Miles here. How about you, Devin? What do you?
So two things for me. One, I'm a big, recently been a big cycling fan. I've been watching the Tour de France. I watched Mark Cavendish documentary, recently, and I'm really into the velodrome cycling, so I want to watch that. I mean, that's one of my favorite sports just to watch. I think if I could get into that at some point in my career, that'd be awesome. Maybe after I'm done with track. So that's number one. Number two is handball. Probably the most exciting event I saw when I was in 2016 in Rio. I watched Egypt play, I believe, Sweden in handball, and they won, defeated Sweden, a huge upset, and the stadium and everybody was going crazy, and it was probably the most electric game, just because I had no idea about it, right? I didn't know the rules. I'm just seeing big dudes, fast, big, strong, bouncing the ball, passionate, and jumping up from the 3-point line and faking it and bouncing off the ground, and then the goalie's diving all over the place, looking crazy. They got crazy sticky stuff on their hands so they can grab the ball, and I'm man, this is insane. So yeah, I'm really into handball. So
that's a huge international sport that just gets passed over in the U.S. for some reason.
I'm trying to play some handball.
It looks fun.
I mean,
it looks fun.
I'm going to get into it because the one thing in researching for the show, I found out that literally handball is on every single day of the Olympics.
Every day.
All 17 days, you can watch handball. So there's that.
It's a handball summer.
Summer handball.
I really want to check out the dinghy sailing, though. I want to see what that one is about.
I want to see the U.S. basketball team just go and smoke people. They got a squad out there.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
But that's
you can watch basketball obviously all year round, but it's seeing the Team USA
dominate.
Always fun.
I want to hear some. What were you thinking moments, Devin? You're always good at coming up with a good "what were you thinking" question.
So we got to start this off. So for this show, usually for the rest of the week, we're going to have guests at some point. We're working on the schedule. Hopefully, athletes that are competing in the games, or athletes that have competed in the games, and or people competing in the moment or after they're done. But usually, we pull up I'll go deep dive into their Instagram or a tweet or something like that, and ask them what were they thinking when they did this or did that. So for me, I think the biggest question I have for Henry about distance running is that last 100, right? You're coming off the curve, and I see this all the time because I've been thinking about this. So this is what I was thinking. What truly is the strategy there? Because I see, so half the time I see, the guy in first that's kind of fading. He's into 2, into 3, into 4. And then a lot of times, right, the guy that's coming up will either have to go around and get beat, or he'll just stay, lane 1 and cut underneath. What is the strategy there? I don't even know what you're thinking, but what is the strategy there coming off the last? And you don't have to give me all the details because if you want to save some for yourself. But if you're ahead of me right now and I'm coming behind trying to slingshot, what are you doing to fend me off?
So I'll tell you what my strategy is, and I don't think it's necessarily the best strategy, But like I like when I'm coming off that last like 120 meters, like first off I'm a tall guy, and so you're automatically like drifting out a little bit into lane
100%.
2. So you're fighting
centrifugal
inertia, G forces, whatever. I haven't taken a science class in a while, but you're fighting those and you're drifting out a little bit. So I like to stay out and like, get to keep your stride open. You don't have to get chopped up. You don't really like have to do anything. I think the worst thing you can do is if you're on the inside, you have to chop your stride, go behind the person who you're trying to pass, then pick it back up. It's just too many gear shifts in the last 100 meters. Here's the real strategy though, if you're brave, and this one works out all the time. And even though I would say probably has like an 80 or 90% success rate, nobody ever does it. Just stay in lane 1 because everybody drifts out always.
Yeah.
And so if you're brave and you trust it, you most likely will get an open lane because the person in lane 1 who's leading, like you said, is going to start drifting out to try to, you're not allowed to cut people off, but you can get in their way a little bit.
They do. Come on.
And so actually, one of my teammates, Nia, she does this a lot where she just stays on the inside lane. She stays relaxed and calm, and then the lane opens up and she shoots right down lane 1. And so you save a little bit of extra distance, you save a little bit of time, and it's certainly the move.
That's a little bit of a benefit though for her because she's a little bit smaller in stature. So she can. I actually have seen that from her. Like she slides through like a little gap.
Yeah, bigger guys in those races don't have as much leeway necessarily because you get your legs tangled up and everything. But somebody say, like Cole Hawker, I don't know. He's magic in the pack because somehow he's always boxed and he has horrible positions and he just like somehow gets out. And if I were to try that, I'd be laying on the track like half the time. So
for me, I'm going straight like at the 200-meter mark. I'm like taking an inventory, and I'm just saying, all right, like in my head, if I'm a distance runner, in my body. If I'm even keeping up with you guys, which I'm not, but in my head, right, I have the fastest kick. Like if I'm just in my body, right, there's no doubt about that. I'm the fastest. So I'm taking inventory of everybody in front of me, and I'm thinking, all right, who are the kickers? In the 15, I'm like, okay, maybe Hawker for sure. The young kid that just needed Kessler, right? So I'm thinking, all right, are they in front of me? If they're in front of me, I'm going now. Like I'm widening out to 3. And just I'm running that last 150 in lane 3 that makes it 160, and hopefully I got the legs for it.
I'll tell you this: there's nothing more demoralizing than if you're leading, you're going into 200 meters to go, and you're trying to pass the person, and they hit you with the block going into the turn, and all of a sudden you're just running in lane 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse for your race than to get to that point, think you're passing, and then they can hit an extra gear on you. So if you're the one leading, you always are fighting into that 200 meters just to throw people off. And if you're the one coming on the outside, you're pressing as hard as you can to get past them. So I think you personally would have a better kick than me in the 15.
I mean, I'd be a lap behind.
You just got to be there for 1,300 meters.
Yeah, I could run 1,100 meters and like kick at the same time as you guys.
Maybe you just like wear mask. You make you look like me, and we swap out somehow.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Did he just close in 20?
I gotta go. What were you thinking for you guys? Because this backdrop of our show here is the Paris track. What were they thinking with the purple track? Now I don't know if they stylized this or what, but it's a purple track. What were they thinking?
I think that's kind of been the color for the games. Like I've seen all the signs being that like lavendery. Personally, I like it. I think it looks cool.
Would it throw you off though? Would it be like, what the hell is this purple track? Are you guys?
I don't know.
Like
it's like the Boise State blue field, right? Like, does it throw you off? Yeah, when Boise State wears all blue and you can't tell where the guys are. It's the same thing with like, when there's a team that had a black field and they wore all black uniforms. And like they talk about like wearing dark jerseys. Not as much allowed because the football is dark, right? So like it kind of hides it.
Sounds like a Texas kind of thing.
Well, that's part of like, why teams don't really wear black that much in the league. I think that initially was part of it because I've heard in college, especially like the color of the jersey, and the football like kind of makes it disappear. But I think the track is cool. I'm not sure what they were thinking. It's still the Olympic Games, but the classic red track feels like Olympics. So it's going to be a little different.
We're gonna have to do some research.
What was the track blue in Rio, right?
Yeah. In Berlin for the 2009 World Champs, where Usain Bolt set the 100 meter, 200 meter world record. That's a blue track. So maybe there's something special about switching.
Yeah, some iconic. Yeah, I actually have a piece of that track.
Hey.
Oh, that's sick.
Icon Stadium, your friendly confines, Devon. That's a blue track.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm all for it. I think maybe that should just be more of a thing. Like we just change the track color. I know like black is not it because of how hot it would get.
Yeah.
So
we can test out
anybody
some
watching,
colors.
No black tracks, please.
If they can only think of black and red for track colors, they need to hire a new designer.
All right, so do you guys want to make some predictions before we go? I know we're classic for going over our time, Devon. This is what we do, but we can wrap it up pretty quickly. But do you guys have any big predictions of what we're going to see?
And in general, or
just in general? But if you got some thoughts on track and field, like
you know what, I'm going to say this big prediction: U.S. men's rugby going to go all the way.
That's a good one. All right.
I watched them yesterday. I think they played Egypt. Who did they play? Uruguay. Same colors. But yeah, they look pretty good. So I'm going to make that bold call right now.
All right. I like it. Henry, what do you got?
I haven't gotten a chance to think about predictions in other sports, but in track and field, I think there's a potential for an 800 meter world record with Jamal Sajadi.
That's not even. I think that record is gone.
Still, the craziest race I've ever seen in track and field is David Rudisha going out in 48 and setting the world record by himself at the finals of the Olympics. So if they can do that, there's a lot more competition this year. A lot of guys run 141. That's probably what I'm most excited to see. How close they can get to that.
Well, and I think too, like with Hobbs, Kessler, and who else is running? I can't think of it. You're one of your teammates,
Brandon Miller and Bryce Hoppel.
Yeah, Bryce Hoppel and Brandon Miller. Actually, I don't know why I'm blanking right now. Those guys, 142s, and I think they're dipping into the 141s for sure in the final.
They haven't gotten the chance to go over to the Diamond Leagues just yet. Bryce Hoppel got sick at Monaco, so that's where they all ran 141. I think given the right competition, all those guys show up, and we're going to see some big things from those three, especially Brandon Miller. Shout out to him.
Shout out.
I'm going to make two predictions. I'm going to stick to sprinting. One prediction is Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price is going to win the 100.
Wow!
So that
rocket.
And I think on the other side with the men, I think Fred is going to take gold this time.
Wow!
I'm just there's something about him this year that I'm like, I think this is it. And
somebody clip it. Somebody clip it. So when it happens.
Hey,
I'm going Noah Lyles in the 100, so we can put some money on it off behind the scenes. But
this is gonna be fun. Hey, do you guys know
you can gamble on track, right?
You actually can. The odds are out now, but Washington you can't. So I've just been looking at them.
Oh, you got to come back to New York,
Washington.
Okay, so for tomorrow, Henry, you're coming back. I don't know my big grid schedule.
I'm coming back next weekend.
You're coming back next weekend, and probably, oh, you know what? You're on with Justin Robinson. Yeah, August 5th, we got you locked in, right?
Yep.
That was the date. So you're on with Justin Robinson, and just an hour before the show, Shanti Jackson is going to be the guest.
Oh, awesome.
So that'll be fun. That'll be a really fun show.
She's another Brooks runner.
That's right. And
then watching Batman Jackson, I got to meet him at the Brooks headquarters. That was I went up to him and I was like, "Oh, you're Batman Jackson," and he was a little bit shocked that I think that somebody at Brooks recognized him.
He's a cool dude. We had a fun time shooting with Shanti. So if you haven't watched the sprint episode, you should. The Science of Sprinting. It's a great episode. The physician from HSS is like a movement expert in running. Like, she was so good. It was like,
have you ever watched a rocket
but tomorrow,
take off
Devon,
into the atmosphere?
I don't even know if do you know who we have on? It's me and you with one guest tonight.
Think about the combustion and the power and the fire and the force and the float and the fact that it blasts off into the sky and you're never going to see it again.
Thomas, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I know him pretty well. He
you do? Okay.
In 2021 or 2022, he just went pro, and I was kind of talking to him about like the ins and outs of the circuit and stuff. So yeah, I know LeQuant. Yep.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. Yeah, I thought he would be fun to have on the show, and I think we got him locked in coming back next weekend as well. But we got a lot of good shows coming up. So Clayton Murphy is going to be with us, I think, on Sunday in a guest appearance. And then we also just locked in Blake Leeper. Blake.
Sprinter.
The sprinter. He's a Paralympian, so he's going to be on the Sunday show. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, great. We got some good guests coming up, and I'm sure with the games getting underway and the events getting started, I'm sure we'll have tons to talk about in general.
Exactly.
So do we have to do our outro shout-outs?
Yeah, I think you got to do the outro because you're the best at it.
So real quick, big shout-out to World's Greatest. If you want to follow us on TikTok, it's right here, World's Greatest 2024. Our Twitter handle is World's Greatest without any of the vowels. The Instagram handle is World's Greatest Team. And then the YouTube, I think, is just World's Greatest.
Yeah.
Also, quick shout out to Curiosity Streams for they're streaming our the Science of Movement series, right?
Yeah, and we're already having some great success with them and all of our promos and everything.
And VIZIO as well, right? They're sponsoring the Science of Movement and this show.
And a bunch of other shows that we have, including the Brains Behind the Beasts and Superhuman Stories. So, and I actually think we have one-on-ones and Super Docs in there too. So,
okay, and then Henry, if you watched in 2022, I usually give whoever's on the guest the ability to shout out, no free shout outs to anything they want. So it could be legit sponsor, shout out Nike, but it could be anything, right? Like I'm going to say, hey, shout out, no free shout outs, Diet Coke. Always comes in clutch.
What do I got? Shout out. I'm just going to go with what I got next to me. Go Stanley, keeping me hydrated. Seattle-based company.
Hey, nice. Come on, Stanley. We got
Give me a sponsor. Give me a sponsor.
I'm all over that one.
Cool. All right. Well, that was a great show. I feel like, got to get us started. The Olympic Games coming up with some events tomorrow. Handball. I know women's soccer's going. I know men's basketball starts tomorrow. What else is going tomorrow? The rugby.
We got
Saturday rowing,
handball, rowing, shooting, equestrian.
Diving. And this is the positive thing about the Olympics being in Europe is, for the most part, we'll be able to watch some of it. When it was in Tokyo, right? Like it was. It was like super late at night when the events were going on. We were like racing at 9 a.m. But, we're going to have sports starting, how early? 6 a.m., even 3 a.m. our time?
Yeah, 3 a.m.
So it's going to be all day sports. NBC is going to be flying.
Yeah, so Peacock has everything. They're streaming every single sport. So if you want to watch it live, go to Peacock, you get it all. And then obviously NBC will do the primetime kind of coverage that they do. But I think we got a pretty good show out of the gate. That was like solid.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, we didn't have any technical difficulties yet. I'm sure we will.
I think Quincy had a few on the back end there.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, and also for the viewers, I had one of my buddies who's watching text me. The volume bar is adjustable because I know sometimes we throw those videos up for you guys, and sometimes they want to watch them, but we're also talking. So, what I recommend is, unless we're watching the video as a group, maybe just like click it and pull it up in like a tab to watch later. Or, I don't know. Do what you want to do as a viewer. I don't care.
Yeah. Everything you see that we're putting in the show that looks like it's professionally done, you can find on our YouTube channel.
100%. Yeah. World's Greatest.
And all these banners down here are clickable, where it says click to subscribe, whatever, right? So we can. And by the way, you should be clicking that one right there, stream daily, because then you'll just get the reminder that we're streaming. But it's every day at 7 p.m. Devin will be doing a new promo every day.
Yep. And we're back with another episode All right, guys. Well,
all right.
I don't know. We always had a hard time ending these.
We need to find a real ending. Henry, do you have new ideas? We don't have an ending. It's kind of like when you have a song and you just kind of let it fade out at the end.
Yeah. I think you just exit out. I thought Bob just exited out. I was like, that could be a good ending.
Yeah, it's a good ending. All right, guys. Bye.
All right. There we go. See ya. I don't even know how to get you guys off now, though.
Oh, got some balloons.
Whoa, balloons.
Oh.
I don't know what that is.
What was that?
Some FaceTime effects going on.
Oh my God. Oh, I have to go from here to get you off. There we go. That's not it.
One more time, the balloons come out. Oh, there we go. We get confetti this time. I guess if you do hand signals, it goes.
There we go. All right, Henry. I'll see you. Nice job.